When my best friend and I explored the snowy mountains, we got lost. In our despair, an elderly, silver-haired couple fortunately took us in for the night. In the middle of the night, a knock echoed on our bedroom door. Immediately afterward, an old, hoarse voice drifted from outside. "Are you girls asleep? Grandma made some hot soup to warm you up. Please open the door and have some." I rubbed my sleepy eyes, about to get up and open the door. Suddenly, my friend Chloe grabbed my wrist, squeezing it so hard it was painful. Her face was as white as a sheet, and through gritted teeth, she hissed two words: "Don't open." I froze stiff, quickly clutching Chloe's hand. Chloe was flushed red from fever, her palms burning hot. "What's wrong?" I whispered. As soon as I spoke, Chloe unexpectedly pulled me close. Her hot breath caressed my ear. "What I'm about to tell you might be hard to believe, but you must follow my instructions." Chloe's voice was extremely low, trembling violently. Her entire body seemed engulfed in some kind of terror. "There's a sedative in the soup. Absolutely do not drink it. Later, open the door and find an excuse to send them away. Remember not to let them find out." Chloe's words made my heart pound. Her behavior was too unusual, not like faking fear. Was it because of the high fever? Thinking this, I placed my hand on Chloe's forehead and softly asked, "Chloe, did you have a nightmare?" "No," Chloe pushed my hand away, her voice suddenly shooting up. The elderly couple outside immediately noticed the unusual sound. "What's wrong? Girls, what's happening? Why haven't you opened the door yet?" As they spoke, the doorknob shook violently. Chloe and I flinched, staring at the door. Her lips trembled, sweat mixed with tears streamed down her cheeks. I put my arm around Chloe's shoulder, comforting her. "It's okay, I've locked the door, they can't get in." Chloe obediently nestled into my embrace. As time passed, her emotions gradually stabilized. After a moment of silence, Chloe whispered, "Alex, do you remember what I just said?" I hesitated for a second, then nodded. Just then, a clinking sound came from outside the door, like a bunch of keys. The elderly couple, seeing no movement from us for a long time, intended to force the door open. Chloe's face instantly paled. She pushed me away, urgently saying, "Just remember it quickly, open the door." After saying this, she swiftly burrowed under the blanket. I didn't hesitate anymore. I got up and walked to the door, unlocked it, turned the knob, and pulled the door open. Every action was seamless. "Mr. and Mrs. Lee, it's so late. Is something wrong?" As I spoke, I glanced at the keys in Mrs. Lee's hand. Mr. Lee quickly understood the situation. He gently pulled Mrs. Lee's hand and explained, "The old woman was worried you girls might catch a cold, so she specially cooked some soup to warm your stomachs." We kept knocking, and no one answered. We were afraid something might have happened, so please don't mind us. I composed myself and replied with a smile, "It's nothing, really. My friend just had a nightmare, and it took a lot of coaxing for her to fall back asleep. I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting." Mrs. Lee, standing nearby, heard this and subtly glanced into the bedroom. A dim bedside lamp was on inside, and a rising curve could be seen on the bed. She smiled, sighing in relief. "It's good that you two are fine. Here, this is the warm soup I just made. It's still a bit warm, drink it now, child." I looked down at the white ceramic bowl containing the brown liquid, unsure what kind of soup it was. As if guessing my thoughts, Mrs. Lee quickly explained, "Oh, this old woman is so forgetful, I forgot to tell you. This is a herbal soup cooked with aged ginger, very effective for dispelling cold. You two were out in the snow for so long, you must have accumulated a lot of cold energy. Come on, drink it while it's hot, child." I wasn't sure if it was because of Chloe's influence, but looking at the bowl of soup, a sense of unease suddenly welled up inside me. I maintained a calm expression and smiled, thanking them. "You've gone to so much trouble for us, not only letting us stay, but also cooking soup. Thank you." As I spoke, I conveniently took the tray. "I'll take the soup inside first. We'll drink it together after my friend wakes up." Mrs. Lee still smiled, shaking her head. "You drink it first, child. This soup is only effective when drunk hot. If your friend wakes up tomorrow, I'll cook a fresh batch for her." Her intention was clear. She wanted to watch me drink it all right then and there. Panic seized me, and I quickly bowed my head, trying to find an excuse. Suddenly, Mr. Lee beside her asked, "What's wrong? Don't want to drink it?" Though it was a normal question, I heard a dangerous undertone. I quickly changed my expression, feigning awkwardness. "To be honest, I really hate ginger. Even just smelling it makes me uncomfortable. Mrs. Lee suddenly realized, but still smiled persuasively. That won't do, child. Health is the most important thing, and there's no hospital around here. If you get sick too, how can our old selves take care of you both? Seeing that I couldn't refuse, I sighed. All right, fine. With that, I took a bowl, pinched my nose, and gulped it down. Only when the bottom of the bowl was completely empty did the elderly couple exchange smiles. Mr. Lee said, "Well, it's late. We won't disturb you anymore." I nodded with a smile. "Yes, you two should also get some rest." Click, the door closed. I paid close attention, lying near the door and listening. After confirming that the footsteps had disappeared, I locked the door again. Chloe sat up from the bed, breathing heavily as she asked, "Did you just drink the soup?" I nodded, admitting, "You heard it too." In that situation, if I had insisted on refusing, they definitely would have become suspicious. Hearing this, Chloe anxiously said, "Didn't I tell you not to? You shouldn't drink that soup. Something bad will happen if you do." As she spoke, she nervously pulled at her hair. I quickly raised a hand to stop her. "Don't panic yet. You also said there's only a sedative in it, not poison." Chloe looked at my calm expression and quickly asked, "Do you have an antidote?" I shook my head and sighed. "Not an antidote. I can only act quickly before the drug takes effect, make myself vomit out everything I just drank. It's the only way I can think of right now." With that, I walked into the bathroom. Before long, retching sounds echoed. When my stomach was empty, I slowly lifted my head. The person in the mirror looked miserable, with dark circles under my eyes and the corners of my mouth raw from gagging. I stared blankly for a few seconds, then suddenly reached out to touch the mirror. In just a few short seconds, my heart pounded as if it would leap out of my chest. Fortunately, this mirror wasn't a two-way mirror. I laughed mockingly, suddenly feeling like I was overthinking things. When I came out of the bathroom, Chloe was in a terrible state. She was curled up under the blanket, trembling. I sat down beside the bed and whispered, "Chloe, can you tell me now? What exactly happened?" Chloe heard the sound and peeked her head out from under the blanket. Her eyes darted around, and she hesitated for a long time before deciding to tell the truth. "Alex, do you believe in rebirth?" She watched my expression as she spoke. "You'll probably think I'm crazy, but the feeling was terrifyingly real. I remember clearly, it was tonight that we accidentally drank that soup, and when I woke up, I was locked in the basement. The basement had no windows, pitch black, with no light filtering in. I don't remember how long I was there. Every time I opened my eyes, I saw that old man tormenting me. When he was done, his wife, out of jealousy, would beat me. As soon as I fainted from the pain, they'd douse me with salt water to wake me up again. It kept repeating like that. Finally, one day, I couldn't take it anymore. When the old man was careless, I bit his neck. He furiously grabbed a hammer and killed me." Chloe seemed immersed in painful memories, her breathing suddenly becoming shallow and rapid. I held her tightly, trying to distract her. "Chloe, what about me? Was I also locked in the basement like you?" Chloe's eyes cleared for a moment, and she choked out, "I don't know. I woke up and only found myself in the basement. I don't know where you went. Alex, I was really scared alone." Chloe buried her head in my chest as if this was the only way to find some safety. I gently patted her back, my voice soft. "It's okay, everything's over. There's still time." Chloe had always depended on me. After hearing these words, her emotions stabilized much more than before. "Alex, what do you think we should do?" I pressed my lips together, not answering. Honestly, I fully believed Chloe's words. The idea of rebirth sounded too fantastical, but I knew Chloe very well. She absolutely couldn't lie to me about something like this. Whether it was true or false, I had to devise a perfect counter-strategy. I thought for a moment, carefully analyzing the current situation. The elderly couple was old, around 70, with mobility issues. They didn't confront us directly because they weren't confident of winning, which is why they chose to drug us. Chloe indignantly agreed. "Exactly. Those damned old folks definitely aren't strong enough compared to us." "Yes, so we should try not to eat anything they give us." "But," Chloe hesitated, "are we not going to eat anything at all? Won't we starve to death?" I shook my head and pulled the blanket over her. "Tomorrow, I'll wake up early and cook breakfast. At least breakfast will be safe to eat." "Then what? They'll find another opportunity, or should we escape tonight?" I glanced at the snow falling thick like goose feathers outside the window. Without thinking, I refused. "Did you forget we almost died in the snow? Going out now would be like committing suicide." Then what should we do? If we stay here, we'll die too. Chloe collapsed in despair. I pressed her head, making her look straight into my eyes. Chloe, we won't die. They're just two old people. If what you say is true, I'll kill them. Now you need to rest, don't think too much. Chloe stared blankly for a few seconds, finally saying nothing, and obediently closed her eyes. I let out a long sigh. The surroundings were silent as a tomb. It felt as if this was the first moment I could truly relax. I didn't know if it was due to being too tired these past few days or the lingering effects of the drug taking hold, but not long after closing my eyes, I drifted off to sleep. I vaguely heard some indistinct, mixed voices, and not just that, but also the rustling sounds of footsteps pacing back and forth. Fortunately, it didn't last long. When I opened my eyes again, dawn had broken with a white light outside. As soon as I woke up, I roused Chloe. At this point, we definitely couldn't act alone. When we had finished cleaning up and came out to the living room, breakfast was already set on the table. The elderly couple was busy in the kitchen. A moment later, Mrs. Lee came out, her face surprised. "Oh my, why are you up so early? I was going to let you sleep a bit longer." I glanced at the wall clock. It was just past 6 a.m. "It really is early," I replied with a smile. "I was planning to get up early to cook breakfast, but I didn't expect. Haha, no chance to repay you now." Mr. Lee heard the commotion and also came out of the kitchen. He carried a tray with 4 steaming bowls of millet porridge neatly arranged on it. "We old folks sleep little, unlike you young ones," Mr. Lee said as he set down the porridge. I quickly glanced over, then turned to Chloe, who was standing beside me. "Why are you just standing there blankly? Go into the kitchen and get some chopsticks." Chloe was startled for a moment. When she met my gaze, she immediately understood my intention. She forced a small laugh. Right, I'll go get them now." Mrs. Lee got up, intending to follow her into the kitchen, but I stopped her. "It's just a small thing, she can get them. You sit down, Mrs. Lee." She opened her mouth to speak, glanced at Mr. Lee, and finally sat back down in her original spot. The very next second, the sound of breaking glass echoed from the kitchen, followed by a gasp, Chloe's scream. Mrs. Lee, startled, jumped up and rushed into the kitchen. Mr. Lee beside her couldn't stay calm either and immediately followed. Seeing that their attention had been diverted, I quietly swapped the positions of the porridge bowls. Chloe stood frozen in place, repeatedly apologizing. It turned out that while getting the chopsticks, she accidentally dropped and broke a plate. I frowned, pulled Chloe to the side, and sincerely apologized to the elderly couple. "We're really sorry to trouble you again." Mrs. Lee waved her hand, not minding at all. "Oh, it's just a plate. It's not serious if it breaks," Mr. Lee echoed. "That's right, we'll clean it up later. Come on, eat breakfast before it gets cold." I sighed in relief, smiling. Yes, after breakfast, Chloe and I will clean up. At the dining table, everyone bowed their heads and ate. It was so quiet that only the sound of chewing could be heard. When breakfast was over, I stood up and volunteered. "You two rest for a moment, I'll clear this up." The elderly couple didn't stand on ceremony, watching me clear the dishes with benevolent gazes. Chloe had intended to follow me into the kitchen, but I stopped her. "Chloe, stay here and chat with them for a bit." She looked at me, wanting to speak but stopping herself, finally slumping despondently onto the chair. Outside the kitchen, the 3 were chatting happily, occasional short bursts of laughter echoing. I held a dish sponge, washing and pondering. Suddenly, there was a thudding sound of something heavy falling to the floor. Then, Chloe screamed loudly, "Alex, they've collapsed." I quickly turned off the faucet and rushed out. In the living room, the 2 people who had just been laughing and talking were now lying motionless on the floor. Without thinking, Chloe immediately asked, "Did you anticipate they would drug the breakfast?" I shook my head. I didn't know, I just took precautions, never expecting to be right. At the same time, I also started to feel tense. I didn't know how long the drug's effects would last. I quickly found a roll of rope, tied them up tightly, and then began to search the entire house. There were too many mysteries now. I had to find out what was truly happening. First, I searched the elderly couple's room. Opening the wooden door, a simple, rustic style appeared before my eyes. We searched for over half an hour but found no useful information. "Chloe, let's look somewhere else." Chloe stood motionless as a statue in front of a desk. I moved closer, following her gaze, and saw a photo frame on the desk. Inside was a faded, yellowed photo, seemingly taken long ago, of a young man and woman, perhaps the old couple in their youth. "Alex," Chloe's voice was unusually hoarse. She stared at the photo, her entire body beginning to tremble uncontrollably. You look at this photo. I bent down to examine it carefully. The people in the photo wore standard smiles, exuding the rustic charm of that era. But other than that, I didn't find anything unusual. What's wrong? Is something off? No, something is off. Chloe suddenly cut me off. She turned her head, her face filled with terror. Look at their faces, look closely. Startled by her shout, I re-examined the photo carefully. I didn't know if it was psychological, but I felt the eyes of the people in the photo had a chilling quality. Suddenly, Chloe gripped my arm, her strength frighteningly strong. She choked out, "I remember, I know who they are." Chloe pointed at the photo frame, her hand trembling nonstop. "Do you remember the ethnic minority research project we did a few months ago? Back then, while researching, we found a missing persons case in this snowy mountain range from 40 years ago." I was startled awake, my expression complex. "You mean?" Chloe said impatiently. "Did you forget? There was a photo in the documents, I remember it clearly, it's them." A chill ran down my spine. "Are you sure you're not mistaken? If these two people are still alive, why haven't they left? How could ordinary people live in the mountains for 40 years? Hearing me, Chloe wavered slightly. She intently looked at the two people in the photo, her gaze slowly becoming resolute. "I'm sure. Look, this man has a tattoo on his hand." Chloe became more excited as she spoke. The photo in the documents back then was cut from an old newspaper. Because it was so old and black and white, I initially thought it was a stain, so it left a deep impression. Now that I think about it, it was probably a tattoo. I frowned. If it really is them, that's incredibly strange. Hiding deep in the mountains for decades, for what purpose? Just because they liked peace and quiet? Chloe's lips moved, as if about to blurt out the answer. Just then, a strange sound echoed from outside. Chloe and I looked at each other, beginning to feel tense. The drug must be wearing off. We returned to the living room. The ropes binding the two were still intact. Their eyes were closed, with no signs of waking. Chloe sighed in relief. Good thing they're not awake yet. I didn't let down my guard because of this. I moved closer and observed them carefully. I stared for nearly a minute. Fortunately, there was nothing unusual. Suddenly remembering something, I rolled up Mr. Lee's sleeve. On his thin arm was tattooed a black snake, its head and tail connected, forming a circle. It seemed they really were the people in the photo. Chloe's face paled. "So, what do we do now?" My mind raced. Even though we had identified them, many things remained unclear. For example, why had they stayed here all this time, and why did they intend to drug us? Perhaps this house held other secrets. So where would they be hidden? If it were me, I would definitely hide them somewhere no one would expect, but where I could observe everything at all times. I narrowed my eyes, looking around, and finally my gaze settled on the woodshed outside. The woodshed wasn't large, only about 10 square meters, located to the west, directly facing the old couple's bedroom window. "Chloe," I said impatiently, "you stay here and keep watch. If they wake up, report it to me immediately." "And you?" Chloe asked anxiously. "I'll continue searching, see if I can find any more clues." Chloe glanced at the two elderly people sleeping soundly, then nodded. "Okay, I understand." I added, "You must tell me when they wake up. Be careful yourself." With that, I walked straight out the main door. The snow outside was falling thickly, accumulated up to my knees. Fortunately, the woodshed wasn't far. A few steps and I was there. Approaching it, I discovered the woodshed was locked with a large padlock. A dilapidated old woodshed needing a lock? I snickered, further confirming my suspicions. Thinking this, I kicked the door hard. The thin wooden board shook violently but didn't give way. Annoyed, I bent my head, thinking of another way. Suddenly, I saw an axe blade propped in the corner of the wall, probably used for daily firewood splitting. I picked up the axe, raised it high, and swung it forcefully, bringing it down directly on the padlock. The wooden door split open with a hole. One strike, two strikes. Bang! The padlock fell into the snow. Creak. I gently pushed the rotten wooden door open. A musty air assaulted my nose, mixed with the smell of fresh wood. A truly strange smell. I instinctively frowned. There was no light in the room. The space was pitch black, but thanks to the light from outside, I could vaguely see inside. The cramped space was filled with firewood. Like this, there was really nowhere to hide anything. Was I wrong? I slowly stepped deeper inside. My heavy steps on the wooden floor produced creaking sounds. I suddenly remembered a movie I had seen. The main character hid in the house's basement when a monster attacked and luckily escaped. Thinking this, I stomped hard twice on the floor. Thud, thud, the floor was completely solid. I didn't give up, continuing to push the pile of firewood aside. In the furthest corner, a floorboard had lifted at the edge. I squatted down and tapped it hard twice with my finger. Tap, tap. The sound was completely different. I opened my eyes wide with excitement, putting all my strength into prying it open with my hand. Unfortunately, without a tool, I couldn't lift this board. I anxiously stood up, looking around for something, and found a crowbar stuck in a nearby pile of firewood. I quickly pulled out the crowbar, then inserted its flat end into the gap in the board and pried it open with force. I heard a clack, and the board sprang open. I lifted the board, revealing an entrance with stairs leading downwards. It was pitch black inside, and I couldn't see the situation clearly, but the current emergency didn't allow for hesitation. I gripped the crowbar tightly in my hand and cautiously descended. Fortunately, after just a few steps, I found the light switch. I reached out and pulled the string switch. A warm yellow light immediately illuminated the entire area. The further I went down, the stronger the stench grew, assaulting my nose. It was a smell of decay mixed with the metallic tang of rust, hard to describe in words. After about 10 steps, I reached the deepest part of the basement. I quickly glanced around, my gaze stopping at the left wall. All kinds of torture instruments hung there. Those tools gleamed with a cold, terrifying light. Even the most harmless-looking horsewhip was covered in sharp thorns. I slowly moved closer, my gaze gradually shifting backward. On an iron shelf, women's items were neatly arranged. Hair ties, silk scarves, necklaces, earrings. Not only that, but there was also a custom-made photo frame, and inside it was an admission letter. Student Lee Haiwon, congratulations on your admission to the Department of Journalism and Communication, specializing in university-level journalism. Please bring this notification to enroll on May 1st, 1983. 1983 was over 40 years ago. Reading this, my breathing gradually became shallow and rapid. Did these items come from the same woman or many different ones? Were they stolen? Or a more horrifying theory suddenly flashed in my mind. I remembered Chloe's words last night. She had been locked in a basement. It was very likely this very basement I was standing in. These circumstances forced me to believe that Chloe had indeed been reborn. My face went pale for a moment, and I started rethinking everything. If the items on the shelf came from multiple people, then this elderly couple could very well be serial killers, hiding deep in the forest, probably to escape police pursuit. Good thing I had managed to swap the porridge bowls. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but feel a belated fear. As I stepped out of the basement, an agonized scream echoed from outside. It sounded exactly like Chloe. My heart sank. I quickly picked up the axe from the ground and rushed towards the wooden house. At the door, the elderly couple had their backs to me. In their hands, they held fruit knives, their blades gleaming with blinding red streaks. Combined with the scream from earlier, I immediately guessed Chloe was injured. I struggled to suppress my anger, slowly advancing towards them. Chloe had already seen me. Eyebrows relaxed slightly, but she didn't let down her guard. "Where's your friend? Did she run away and leave you?" Mr. Lee probed, seemingly hesitant. Chloe instinctively denied it. "How could that be? She just stepped out for a bit. She'll be back soon." Mr. Lee's voice was hoarse. "That won't do then. We'll have to deal with you before she comes back. 2 people at once are too difficult to handle." With that, he glanced at Mrs. Lee, signaling her. The two of them slowly advanced towards Chloe. HMPH? I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. The two heard the sound and froze for a moment. They slowly turned around. Before they could even speak, an axe blade accurately struck the man's head. Mr. Lee's eyes were wide, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. He fell to the ground with a painful thud, quickly stopped breathing. It was only then that Mrs. Lee regained her senses. She knelt on the ground, wailing mournfully. "Oh my God, what have you done? I kindly took you in, and you repay kindness with enmity, killing my husband." Tears and snot streamed down Mrs. Lee's face, and she stared at me with a hateful gaze. "If I had known, I should have left you to die in the snow." Chloe ran to my side, scared, hiding behind me. I looked at Mrs. Lee and laughed coldly. "Kindly took us in. If we hadn't been quick-witted, we would probably be locked in that basement, enduring all that pain right now, wouldn't we?" A flicker of panic appeared in Mrs. Lee's eyes. "You went down to the basement," I replied off-topic. "How many people have you two killed?" She looked straight at me, then suddenly let out a laugh. "How many people? I don't remember. Those depraved women deserved to die. Who told them to seduce my husband?" "Seduce? It was clearly him who harmed those women." "I don't think he fundamentally loved you. Otherwise, how could he do such things?" "You're talking nonsense." Mrs. Lee became agitated. He naturally loved me. He said those other women made me angry and they deserved to die. I saw her as both pitiful and hateful. Is that so? I think you deserve to die. As soon as I finished speaking, the sharp axe blade split her head open. Chloe looked at the two corpses on the ground and asked anxiously, Alex, you've killed someone. What if the police come? I shook my head. Don't be afraid. They were murderers to begin with, and besides, we acted in self-defense. With that, I pulled one of the corpses, intending to go outside. Chloe didn't understand. Where are you pulling him? A body gets heavier after death. I panted, replying, throw them into the basement. If we leave them here, aren't you afraid? Chloe's lips moved, and finally, she reluctantly pulled the other corpse. After taking care of everything, my stomach growled with hunger. This morning, because of the anxiety, I hadn't dared to eat much breakfast. Chloe smiled. I'll go into the kitchen and see what's there, cook something for you. With that, she went straight into the kitchen. Chloe had a knack for cooking better than I did. She was busy in the kitchen, and I cleaned the bloodstains on the floor. Everything seemed to be going well. As night fell, I lay on the bed. Chloe looked out at the heavy snow outside. Alex, why does the snow seem to be getting heavier and heavier? We won't be stuck here forever, will we? She started overthinking again. I patiently explained, how could that be? Spring will come eventually. Early the next morning, we were woken up by a knock on the door. Girls, Grandma made breakfast for you. Wake up and eat something. I immediately opened my eyes. If I wasn't mistaken, this was Mrs. Lee's voice. Chloe quickly turned to look at me, her small face pale. She had clearly recognized it too. Alex, the person outside. I gestured for her not to speak. Mrs. Lee continued to knock. Girls, don't sleep anymore. You can eat your fill and then go back to sleep. I quickly got out of bed, taking a Swiss Army knife from my backpack. Seeing this, Chloe also pulled a knife from her own pocket. I gestured with my eyes, telling her to move aside, then carefully opened a crack in the door. Mrs. Lee outside smiled benignly. Did you sleep well last night? How does it feel when someone you killed is standing alive right in front of you? My first reaction was fear, then confusion. What's wrong? Are you sick too, child? Mrs. Lee said, reaching out to touch my forehead. Instinctively, I leaned away to avoid it. She awkwardly withdrew her hand. Sorry, I saw your face wasn't looking well and thought you might have a fever. I was unintentional. My face was indeed not well. Anyone in this situation wouldn't have a good complexion. I composed myself and forced a smile. Sorry, Mrs. Lee, I just woke up, so my mind isn't clear yet. You all go ahead and eat breakfast first, no need to wait for us. We'll come down as soon as we've freshened up. Mrs. Lee smiled, her eyes crinkling. Okay, I made some millet porridge. If you're not feeling well, this is the most suitable meal. After closing the door, Chloe quickly ran to my side. She pulled my hand and asked, Alex, what exactly is going on? I shook my head, my mind tangled like a knot. I don't know, it's really strange. Let's just play it by ear for now. After showering and freshening up, I hid the Swiss Army knife in my jacket pocket and also didn't forget to remind Chloe. Later, when we go out, just like yesterday, you create an unexpected incident, and I'll secretly swap the positions of the porridge bowls. Chloe pressed her dry lips together and nodded seriously. When we reached the living room, the situation was different from yesterday. The couple had already started eating breakfast, and they had thoughtfully prepared spoons for us. Chloe and I looked at each other, clearly unsure what to do next. I quietly signaled with my eyes, implying not to act rashly. At the dining table, Mr. Lee suddenly put down his chopsticks and asked, Why are you two only eating the side dishes and not your porridge? Grandma specially cooked this for you. It took all morning to finish. That's right, Mrs. Lee echoed. When you're sick, eating porridge is easier on your stomach. As they spoke, a barely perceptible expectation showed in their eyes. Chloe's face showed awkwardness and she hesitated. I don't have any appetite anymore. Mr. Lee feigned anger. How can that be? Grandma specially prepared this for you. Even 2 spoonfuls would be fine, otherwise, Grandma will be sad. This statement pushed us into a position of confronting our conscience. Chloe looked at me, completely flustered. I wiped the corner of my mouth and pushed my bowl of millet porridge towards him. Mr. Lee, confused, asked, What are you trying to do? I looked him straight in the face and slowly said, I can't eat any more either, but I can't bear to disappoint your kindness, so I'm asking you to eat it for me. Mr. Lee's face froze for a moment. Me, I can't, I just finished eating. Besides, Grandma specially cooked this for you. Specially cooked it for us, is there something extra in it? Mrs. Lee beside him widened her eyes, a hint of panic on her face. What could I have added? Is there some misunderstanding? I calmly looked at her. Why are you worried? I meant, is there something healthy added to the porridge? Mrs. Lee secretly sighed in relief. No, it's just ordinary millet porridge. Mr. Lee seemed to notice something amiss. His gaze shifted back and forth between me and Chloe. Suddenly he said, "Fine, if you don't want to eat, we won't force you." With that, he stood up, intending to leave the living room. "Wait," I stood up and called out to him. Before anyone could react, I had pressed the blade of my Swiss Army knife against his neck. Chloe, swift and quick-witted, immediately restrained Mrs. Lee. Mr. Lee's face changed color, beads of sweat on his forehead. He asked nervously, "What are you trying to do?" I pointed to the bowl of millet porridge on the table and ordered, "Eat it." Mr. Lee opened his mouth to protest. I was impatient and pressed the knife deeper. Ah. Mr. Lee didn't dare to argue. Grimacing, he drank the entire bowl of porridge. Done, he slammed the empty bowl onto the table. "Is that enough?" I nodded, then gestured with my chin towards Mrs. Lee. "You eat too." Mrs. Lee looked awkward. "I have to eat too." Chloe pressed the knife closer to her neck. "Just eat it when you're told." Seeing this, Mrs. Lee quickly picked up the bowl and, trembling, gulped down all the porridge. Mr. Lee's face darkened. "We've done as you asked. Can we go now?" I shook my head. "Sit here for another 10 minutes, then you can leave." Yesterday, after they drank the porridge, the drug's effects took hold in about 10 minutes. Mr. Lee took a deep breath. About 2 minutes later, his face turned ashen and he said, "I need to use the restroom." I glanced at him and decisively refused. "Urinate right here." Mr. Lee's face turned red with anger. "I need to defecate." "Do you want me to do it right here?" I replied calmly. "If you can't hold it, then don't." Mr. Lee clenched his fist and slammed it onto the dining table. The thud made everyone jump. Then he suddenly spun around, pushing with all his might. Unprepared, I fell, hitting my back against a pillar. The knife in my hand dropped to the ground. A fleeting look of glee crossed Mr. Lee's face. He quickly snatched a ceramic bowl from the table and threw it forcefully towards me. My pupils contracted. Instinctively, I tilted my head, dodging it. Though an old man in his 70s, he was still a murderer. His fighting ability was not to be underestimated. I had underestimated him. Chloe beside me anxiously cried out, "Don't move. If you move again, I'll kill her immediately." As she spoke, she pressed the knife blade even closer to Mrs. Lee's neck. The Swiss Army knife was incredibly sharp. Mrs. Lee's neck immediately began to bleed. Mr. Lee angrily yelled, "You're truly ungrateful. We kindly took you in and even cooked so much food for you, and you repay kindness with enmity." Chloe couldn't help but spit at him. "Kindly took us in? Don't think we don't know what you put in the porridge, you perverts, you murderers." Mr. Lee clearly hadn't expected her to say that. He hesitated for a few seconds, his face gradually showing a crazy look. "How long have you known? Last night? Was it that hot soup?" "I knew it. You kept refusing to drink it. You must have been suspicious." "But it's okay. I like smart women the most. It's more interesting that way." "What are you planning to do? Swallow us or kill us? You probably wouldn't dare to kill someone, would you? Or wait for the snow to clear and then hand us over to the police?" "Haha, snow. I originally intended to cherish you too well, but I never expected to be exposed. Oh my, old woman, I never thought we'd lose to these two beautiful girls." Mr. Lee kept mumbling to himself, his wrinkled face displaying a look of debauchery mixed with regret, truly disgusting. Before long, the drug began to take effect. Mr. Lee gradually lost control of his body, collapsing to the ground. Mrs. Lee followed, falling off her chair. I frowned, picked up the knife from the ground, and plunged it forcefully into Mr. Lee's left chest. Though in a coma, the heart-wrenching pain made him instantly open his eyes. Unwilling, he wanted to ask why. I stared at his face, gently twisted the hilt of the knife. More blood gushed from his chest. Mr. Lee painfully gritted his teeth. Before he could say a word, he stopped breathing. Chloe had never killed anyone before, so she was a bit awkward, not knowing where to start. "If you don't want to kill, just let me do it. I've already killed many times, I wouldn't mind doing it again." As I spoke, I pulled out the knife, intending to finish off Mrs. Lee. "No," Chloe's eyes gradually hardened. "Let me kill her. I can't let you do everything." As soon as she finished speaking, she gripped the knife tightly, gritting her teeth and closing her eyes as she plunged the knife into Mrs. Lee's chest. A sickening thud. The intense pain made Mrs. Lee suddenly fully conscious. She grabbed Chloe's hand, her eyes filled with disbelieving suspicion. Chloe, unprepared, flinched and retreated in panic. I stepped forward, covering her eyes, and gently comforted her. "It's okay, they deserved it." Only when Mrs. Lee had completely stopped breathing did I lower my hand. Chloe sobbed, unsure if from fear or emotion. She turned to look at me, her expression suddenly changing. Alex, what's wrong with your face? I unconsciously raised a hand to my face. Chloe's expression flickered with doubt, then she blinked and sighed in relief. It's nothing, I must have imagined it. Night gradually fell. Chloe collapsed onto the sofa. Alex, let's go back to the bedroom. I shook my head, my gaze fixed on the two corpses on the floor. You go to sleep. Tonight I'm staying here. I'm determined to witness them come back to life right before my eyes. Hearing this, Chloe went back to the bedroom and got 2 blankets. She draped a blanket over me. I'm not sleeping alone. Tonight, both of us will stay in the living room. The living room had a fireplace and the fire blazed brightly, so there was no fear of cold. As time moved into the late hours, Chloe yawned broadly, clearly beginning to tire. I was still fine. I was used to staying up late, so this hour wasn't too late. If you're sleepy, go to sleep first. Chloe tried to resist. No, how can I let you keep watch alone? It's okay, you sleep first. We'll take turns. I'll wake you up when I get tired. Chloe found this reasonable. Okay, remember to wake me up then. With that, she rested her head on the blanket, and her snores quickly echoed. When I was alone, it was easier to think. I began to reanalyze the events of the past few days. The source of all strangeness seemed to begin with Chloe's rebirth. According to her, she was imprisoned in the basement for many days, only to be reborn after dying. Wait, something seemed off. The elderly couple today seemed to have no memory of yesterday. That means they weren't reborn, they just simply came back to life. No, that's not right. A chilling thought suddenly flashed in my mind. Had they truly been reborn, or were Chloe and I stuck in the same day? My breathing became more rapid, my eyes fixed on the 2 corpses on the floor. Tonight, I absolutely had to witness them come back to life with my own eyes. Time passed slowly. The surroundings were quiet, save for the rustling sound of falling snow and the crackling of wood in the fireplace. Outside the window was still pitch black. The clock hands pointed to 4:00 a.m. Just then, a fierce wave of sleepiness overwhelmed me. This feeling came out of nowhere, like being injected with a powerful anesthetic. The world spun, and the next second, my head slumped onto the sofa. When I opened my eyes again, I was woken up by someone. Girls, why are you sleeping in the living room like this? Mrs. Lee looked at me, full of concern, her face less than 2 fists away from mine. I shot upright, looking down at the living room floor. It was spotless, absolutely no trace of yesterday's fight. No, this wasn't right. My mind was blank and buzzing. Mrs. Lee asked, "Are you hungry? Shall I go cook something for you?" I forced a grimace, a smile uglier than a cry. No need, we'll go back to the bedroom for a bit more sleep. With that, I woke up the deeply sleeping Chloe. Chloe rubbed her bleary eyes. When she clearly saw the current situation, her expression suddenly changed. Back in the room, after washing my face, my mind cleared completely. Alex, did you see it last night? How did they come back to life? Chloe's words made my already pale face turn even greener. No, I fell asleep then. Chloe was impatient. Why didn't you wake me up when you were sleepy? Didn't we agree to take turns? I tiredly rubbed my temples. Chloe, I wasn't just sleepy. An invisible force was compelling me to sleep. This time, we're really in serious trouble. Chloe's heart pounded in her throat, her voice trembling. Alex, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go home. I want to eat my mom's dumplings. As soon as she finished speaking, a tear rolled down her cheek. I reached out and wiped her tear. I'll get you out of this place. Over the next few days, we tried every method, but no matter what we did, the loop couldn't be broken. Even when we tried to leave, we would eventually circle back to the starting point. We even tried extreme methods, risking suicide in hopes of escaping the loop. Unfortunately, when we opened our eyes, it was always the same familiar scene. These continuous failures gradually made us lose our initial will to fight, until one day, I saw a wrinkled, withered face in the mirror. That face was too familiar, it was my own. Not only that, Chloe was also fading away. During our time here, it seemed our life force was being drained. At the dining table, I looked at the elderly couple. No, I couldn't call them an elderly couple anymore because they looked even younger than me. The wrinkles on Mrs. Lee's face seemed to vanish overnight, and even her silver temples turned black again. She served me a bowl of porridge. Come on, child, eat something. I swung my arm, knocking the bowl away. I screamed, losing control. What kind of demonic tricks are you playing? What kind of dark magic is this, to drain our lifespans? Mrs. Lee stopped pretending. Well done, so you figured it out. What do you mean? I couldn't understand the deeper meaning of her words, or perhaps my brain had started to slow down. Mrs. Lee sat down next to Mr. Lee, her face unable to hide her excitement. No one can leave this house unless a suitable replacement is found. I seized upon the keyword, replacement. You mean you weren't here voluntarily? Voluntarily? Mr. Lee sounded like he'd heard a sick joke. This place is miserable. We don't see a soul all year. Who would want to live in this wretched corner? I thought you were hiding from police pursuit. Initially, it was to take refuge, but who knew that once we entered, we couldn't escape? Damn it, good thing you two arrived. What's the outside world like now? It must be much better than 40 years ago, right? When I get out, I won't be a murderer anymore. I can start anew. Haha, Mr. Lee said, his expression increasingly smug and full of yearning. I felt my body getting heavier and heavier. Chloe was also feeling unwell. She was drowsy and sleepy. The vines that had climbed from her feet had reached her knees, almost merging with the wooden house. I used all my strength to slap her face. Chloe, wake up, don't sleep. Seeing this, Mrs. Lee flushed with excitement. The replacement is almost complete. Finally, we can leave this cursed place. She was rejuvenating at a visible speed, looking exactly like the woman in the photo. I don't know where I found the strength, but I suddenly shot up from the chair. Are you kidding? Replacement? You mean we have to stay here for decades? Mrs. Lee shook her head. I already told you, you have to wait until a suitable replacement appears. It could be a few months, a few years, or a few decades, even hundreds of years. No one can say for sure. I angrily swept everything off the dining table, dishes shattered on the floor. Then I smashed everything I could in the house. The couple just watched coldly, as if mocking the futility of my actions. That's right. Tomorrow, this house will be completely restored as before. Alex, I'm so scared. Chloe's voice came from behind me, no longer clear as before. She opened her clouded eyes and reached out to me. I quickly ran to her and grabbed her hand. Don't be afraid, I promised I'd get you out of here. Chloe nodded softly. I know. With that, she slowly closed her eyes, seemingly having no strength left. Mr. Lee glanced at the clock on the wall. I quickly noticed he was checking the time. Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee looked at each other, saying nothing. I suddenly remembered them saying they had to wait for the replacement process to be complete, meaning they couldn't leave until it was done. The vines on Chloe's legs had reached her knees. I quickly ran into the kitchen, found a relatively sharp knife, and then quickly cut off the vines on her body. But no matter how much I cut, these vines were like living things, continuously sprouting new ones. Looking at the couple's calm demeanor, it seemed this method didn't threaten them. The vines had already crawled onto Chloe's face. I was completely desperate. Better to die together than stay here and become replacements. Didn't they say no one could leave this house? Then I would destroy it. I trembled as I stood up, looking around. In the fireplace, sparks crackled. I tore down the curtains and threw everything into the fire. A flicker of panic appeared in Mrs. Lee's eyes. What are you doing? Was she worried? Why couldn't this house be burned down? The fire behind them grew more intense. Mrs. Lee was no longer composed. She became extremely anxious. This won't do any good. Everyone will die. I shook my head. I don't care. Living like this is worse than death. What about Chloe then? She said urgently. She'll die too. Don't you care about her either? I looked deep into Chloe's eyes. She was already completely covered by green vines. She surely wouldn't want to live like this either. As if determined, I threw all the burning fabric outside. There were too many flammable things in the wooden house. The fire quickly spread. Enveloped by the sea of flames, I held Chloe tightly. Before losing consciousness, I saw the elderly couple frantically running towards the door, but in the next second, they were back inside the house. Wake up, quickly, call for help. Someone had fainted. I struggled to open my eyes. In front of me was a strange man. Behind him, a few other people seemed to be running towards us. Where is this? My voice was so hoarse it was barely audible. Fortunately, the man unconsciously leaned close to hear me clearly. Oh my God, why are you two lying on the snow like this? If I hadn't happened to see you, you surely would have died. It's strange, our group has been camping nearby for days. How come we haven't seen you too? I struggled to turn my head to look at Chloe beside me. She softly opened her eyes, weak breaths exhaling white mist. See, I told you I'd get you out of here.